You thought it was love, the intense eye contact, the whirlwind connection, the way they made you feel like the most important person in the world. But somewhere along the way, it shifted. You felt confused, unseen, like you were constantly walking on eggshells. They changed, and somehow you blamed yourself. What if I told you it wasn't just a bad relationship? What if the person you loved was wearing a mask? This is what they never told you about narcissists. The subtle signs, the silent damage, and the truth that could set you free. Let's uncover it, together. What you see on the outside isn't always the truth. Many narcissists appear bold and confident, but underneath lies a wounded, insecure core. Their entire identity is built on masking their self-doubt. That's why they need constant validation and can't tolerate criticism. If you ever get too close to the real them, the broken parts, they'll either lash out or disappear. They don't want to be seen, they want to be admired. Their entire persona is armor, but that armor hides deep emotional wounds that were never healed. In the beginning, narcissists often seem perfect. That's because they mirror you. They reflect your dreams, your values, your energy, and your voice. It feels like a soul connection. But this isn't real compatibility, it's manipulation. By becoming everything you want, they disarm your intuition. You open your heart faster, trust more deeply, but eventually the mask drops. You realize they were never being authentic. They were learning how to control you. Narcissists don't want peace. They crave emotional chaos. Calm and safety feel boring to them. They need tension, conflict, or confusion because it keeps them in control. If things are too still, they'll stir something up, a misunderstanding, an accusation, a subtle jab. Drama feeds their ego, gives them attention, and weakens your emotional stability. The more exhausted you are, the easier it is to manipulate you. That's not love, it's emotional warfare disguised as passion. One of the most disturbing traits of a narcissist is their ability to rewrite history. They'll twist conversations, deny things you clearly remember, or claim they said something totally different. This tactic, known as gaslighting, leaves you confused and doubting your own memory. Over time, you begin to rely on them to define reality. That's their goal, not just control of the relationship, but control of your mind. Truth becomes slippery, and your confidence slowly disappears. When a narcissist apologizes, it's rarely because they're sorry. It's usually because they want something: your forgiveness, access, control, or a clean slate to repeat their behavior. Real remorse leads to change. But narcissistic apologies are empty. They might cry, beg, or say all the right words, but if you pay attention, the same pattern follows. No accountability, no transformation, just temporary humility to reset the cycle. Their apologies are tools, not healing. Though they may abandon you without explanation, narcissists themselves fear being abandoned. That fear drives many of their actions. Clinginess, possessiveness, or emotional withdrawal. They'll push you away and then panic when you leave. They often test how much pain you'll tolerate to prove your devotion, but their deepest fear isn't about losing love, it's about losing control. And if you do walk away, they may try to hoover you back in, just to discard you again. Narcissists are drawn to empaths like moths to light. Empaths are deeply compassionate, naturally forgiving, and always trying to understand others. These are beautiful traits, but in the wrong hands, they become weapons. A narcissist knows you'll give second chances. They know you'll try to fix things, and they'll exploit that until there's nothing left. What looks like love from your side often looks like opportunity from theirs. They don't see your empathy, they see your vulnerability. Triangulation is one of the most damaging manipulation tactics narcissists use. They bring a third person into the dynamic to create jealousy, insecurity, or competition. It could be an ex they constantly bring up, a friend who's always around, or even a family member whose opinion they prioritize over yours. You're left feeling confused, not good enough, and desperate for their approval. That's the point. If you're always off balance, you're easier to control and easier to keep. Narcissists crave attention and admiration like oxygen. They can't go long without being praised, admired, or validated. That's why they dominate conversations, seek out compliments, and post constantly on social media. It's not just vanity, it's survival. Without external validation, their sense of self starts to collapse. They're not connected to an inner worth. They rely on the outside world to tell them who they are. And when they're not the center of attention, they'll make sure to find a way back into the spotlight. Despite how intimate they may seem, narcissists struggle with true emotional closeness. Vulnerability feels threatening to them, so instead of building real emotional bonds, they create transactional or surface-level relationships. They may share just enough to seem open, but they keep the most authentic parts of themselves hidden, even from those closest to them. And when you try to connect deeply, they shut down, deflect, or push you away, because for them, closeness feels like danger, not connection. When a narcissist is caught or challenged, they don't reflect, they deflect. Often they'll play the victim. Suddenly they're the one who's hurt, betrayed, or misunderstood. This shift not only confuses you but also reroutes the blame. Instead of focusing on what they did, you're now comforting them. It's a powerful tactic. It buys them sympathy, resets the narrative, and keeps you questioning your own judgment. But make no mistake, it's a performance designed to escape accountability. Narcissists rarely attack head-on. Instead, they undermine you subtly. A backhanded compliment, a sarcastic remark about your dreams, a joke at your expense that doesn't feel so funny. Over time, these little cuts pile up. You start shrinking, doubting yourself, playing small. That's by design. The less confident you are, the more dependent you become. Narcissists don't just want love, they want control. And control often comes by weakening your self-esteem from the inside out. What's rarely talked about is that narcissists often don't have a real identity. They build themselves through others, adopting traits, interests, even language that isn't truly their own. That's why their personality can shift depending on who they're with. There's a deep inner emptiness they're trying to fill, but it never lasts. Without a crowd, a partner, or an audience, they feel hollow. The person they present to the world is often a carefully curated illusion. Narcissists may act like they're superior, but they're often eaten up with envy. They resent others' success, happiness, or even healthy relationships. Instead of being inspired, they feel threatened. That's why they might sabotage you, dismiss your accomplishments, or compete with you instead of celebrating with you. Their need to feel above you makes it hard for them to be happy for others. They see your light not as beauty, but as competition. Criticism, even the smallest kind, feels like an attack to a narcissist. Why? Because their ego is so fragile that any feedback threatens to unravel their carefully constructed image. They'll react with anger, defensiveness, or silence. Instead of reflecting, they blame. Instead of growing, they shut down. To them, being wrong equals being unworthy. That's why they rarely apologize sincerely or take responsibility. They simply can't handle the vulnerability that growth requires. Over time, being around a narcissist becomes emotionally exhausting. You'll feel drained, confused, anxious, often blaming yourself without knowing why. It's not a healthy relationship. It's a cycle of emotional highs and devastating lows. They keep you chasing their approval, walking on eggshells, and doubting your instincts. This emotional chaos isn't an accident. It's their system of control. You'll begin to feel like a shell of who you once were, unless you break free. One of the most common narcissistic patterns is love bombing followed by devaluation. In the beginning, they shower you with affection, compliments, and intense attention. It feels like a dream, but once you're emotionally invested, the switch flips. Suddenly you're being criticized, ignored, or compared to others. The person who once adored you now tears you down. This push-pull dynamic is deliberate. It keeps you hooked, constantly trying to win back the love they so easily gave and took away. Forgiveness is a beautiful thing, but in the hands of a narcissist, it becomes a weapon. They count on your mercy. They know you'll see the best in them, believe in change, and give another chance. But they don't use that grace to grow. They use it to reset the cycle. Each forgiveness becomes permission, and the more you forgive without boundaries, the more they repeat the harm. You're not wrong for forgiving, but you're not required to stay. Though some narcissists pretend to seek help, true change is rare. Their patterns are deeply rooted in childhood wounds, ego defense, and emotional avoidance. Real transformation takes deep, painful work, and most aren't willing to face the truth. They'll read books, quote therapy terms, and even blame their past, but avoid real accountability. You can't heal them. You can only protect yourself. Hoping they'll change may keep you stuck far longer than they ever deserved. At their core, narcissists fear being exposed. They know, deep down, that the version of themselves they show the world is a performance. If someone sees through the act, sees the insecurity, the cruelty, the manipulation, they lose control. That's why they often react with rage, smear campaigns, or discard when you finally stand up for yourself. They don't want truth, they want obedience. And when they can't maintain the illusion, they'll do everything they can to silence or punish you. If any part of this spoke to you, take a deep breath. You're not imagining it, you're not overreacting, and you're definitely not alone. Narcissistic abuse is subtle, confusing, and deeply damaging, but recognizing the truth is the first step toward freedom. You are not here to be manipulated, drained, or made to question your worth. You were created for peace, for clarity, for love that builds, not breaks. Healing won't be instant, but it begins with awareness, and from that awareness comes strength, and from strength, new life. You're not who they said you were. You are more. You are worthy, and you are finally free to become whole again. If this message brought you clarity or comfort, share your story below. Someone else may need your words to begin their own healing. This space is safe. You are seen. You are not alone.